So I'm Patrick Mullarkey, lots of familiar faces, some names and faces I can kind of half match up. For context, for anyone who's not seen my LinkedIn, I'm just recently started as a learning experience manager at a company called Data IQ. It's an AI company, and you're all sick of hearing about AI this week. Let's put that out there. Okay, I'm not going to talk much about my career history overall, but I do want to kind of signpost. I'm going to be talking about my 3 lessons from working in scale-ups that I think are relevant for all of L&D. And I'm going to put this up front to say, I think working in scale-ups, startups, whatever your label, place and time is, I think it's brilliant, but it's not for everyone. And a lot of what I'm about to share with you are my preferences. So hold me to account tonight, afterwards, whatever, in terms of the lens we look at some of this, what I'm going to share with you. A further context to add to that, as most startups or scale-ups, revenue is one thing, and it's kind of a superpower. Profit is, I don't know how to describe that. For a lot of scale-ups, that's just never going to be a thing, frankly. It's alarming once you get involved in the industry how many teams and organizations are just not making any money. So that's the context that people are chasing revenue and profit in a pipe dream for some of them, which then leads to lesson 1. If you're not helping build a better product or helping the organization to sell it, then frankly, you're probably doing nothing. This is probably the reaction you're going to get in certain instances, and has been my experience as well. I thought I understood the notion of ROI, commercial intent, and so on, but it crystallized so much working in the recent roles I've been in that actually, if you're not producing a better product or helping the organization to sell it, to grow, then really there's a question about your role and the validity of what you're offering. And this, it was a lot less polite, some of the feedback I got at meetings along those lines when I first started out working in the sector. So that's where you kind of start with, build or sell a better product, or just do nothing. So what that then informs at times is, you can't really be relying on a set plan, but you've always got to be shown an ethos, a mindset of contingency planning. And the reason I mention that is, they're quite volatile environments, speaking frankly, and they're subject to change quickly. But you've got to anchor in on 2 or 3 things you're going to offer and add value to, I believe. So going back to the, building a better product or selling it, that's one thing, but also deliberately for your career, and this is like a trigger warning, I'd say, you've got to think a little bit about the things you want to be known for and how you can anchor in, not just what the organization needs, but what you're going to take away as a learning professional afterwards. So don't just be thinking about a long-term plan, but always be planning in terms of contingency for your career and how that can pivot and react to what the organization needs, but also making sure you get something for yourself as you move forward. And then finally, in terms of, there's a misnomer or misconception, I think, sometimes of working in a scale-up or startup. There's a perception of you have autonomy and freedom to do lots of different things. And actually, I think the reality is, going back to that first lesson, build a better product, selling one, you've got to be delivering on those things first before you get the autonomy. So autonomy becomes a consequence of the role if you're doing it properly, not a reward of being in the role. And again, that's something I thought I notionally understood, but in practice, the reality of it has been quite an eye-opener in terms of the stuff I've worked through. Now, there's a very low ceiling in terms of my experience and knowledge I can impart with you, and we all know it's biased, as I said at the top. It's based on my preferences. So just to end on, the benefits I'm trying to bring to life here are, 1, in terms of lesson 1, the products you grow or you're selling to build out more, that brings more value to the organization, which in turn gives you more time and space to plan and frankly protect your career longer term. And then the outcome from that is the autonomy you probably seeked in the first place joining such an organization. And again, you get to drive dialogue and discussions from that. Now, the final thing I just want to end on, this was originally on my submission. Learn to think like an investor was one of the lessons I was going to talk about. I could not find a way to do it justice. And back to my point earlier around my experience is limited, I strongly suggest check out these 2 texts if you want to read more, find out more, but then check out these podcasts. So In Depth is with leaders in the space, in startups and scale-ups, and Run the Numbers. It's interviews with CFOs across the tech space. That has been the biggest eye-opener, that podcast especially. I know CJ is a former colleague, but in terms of understanding better products, better sales. But again, nothing else, I hope it's a good advert for what I've just said in terms of scale-up startups in general, and I hope you found this useful. Thanks.